Hello and welcome to the Who You Know show, a student-led show debating which is more important to succeeding in the film and television industry, who you know or what you know. This week we are so excited to have the one and only Sam Snape here with us to discuss his career.
What?
So Sam, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
I'm really curious to know, did you university?
I did not go to university.
You didn't go to university.
No.
So you left school.
I left school.
What did you do?
I
A-levels?
I did A-levels, yes. I did A-levels and then, bizarrely, I was a hockey player. And I kept on asking to leave, and then they finally acceded to my request when the hockey season finished.
Oh,
and I
right.
played my last
Okay.
game for them. So that was kind of interesting. I then went off around the world a bit, on my thumb primarily.
Oh, right.
I then was going to go to university, but I was also offered a place at a drama school.
Oh, okay.
So I had a choice of a university or a drama school, and I chose the drama school because I wanted to be vocational rather than academic at that time.
So you have quite a history in like theatre, don't you?
Yes.
You mentioned a lot about like.
Yeah, I wanted to be an actor, then a director. The course I did at drama school was directors. And I was going to direct. I got a job directing down in the West Country, having done a bit of acting in London first of all.
Yeah.
Then I went down to my first job, when I was actually paid regular money, was down in Plymouth as an assistant director. No, assistant stage manager first, then an assistant director.
So you wrote scripts for theatre?
Primarily directed in the theatre.
Oh, right, directing, yeah.
I directed in the theatre for 7 years, maybe.
Oh,
I was always writing at the same time.
Yeah, oh, okay.
And so my second theatre company, I was the writer and the director all the time.
Oh, okay.
Because we couldn't afford a writer, so that's...
Oh, no. So was that where you learnt most of your like script writing?
Well, in terms of theatre, yes.
Yeah.
I only got involved in television or film really by accident.
Oh, right.
I wrote a play in North Wales about the mining rights in the North Wales in the 19th century, which HTV, which was the company which ran the franchise for ITV then, called Harlech Television, that's now all part of ITV, saw the theatre show and said, please can we put this on television?
Oh, really?
And I had no interest at all. So the dilemma became, what do you do?
Do you remember the moment when you realised that you wanted to do like theatre then? So obviously you were at the army.
Yeah, I always wanted to do it, but my father was in the army and it's very complicated. To explain the situation is difficult because it sounds ridiculous, but I didn't make any decision. But I kind of did drift into it. My father was incredibly keen that I went in. They let me in early because I got past the regular commissions board quite well. Therefore, he said, you're going to be the youngest brigadier in the army, as if this was some kind of incentive. And at the time, I was seduced by the notion of playing sport all the time, which is what I like. I wanted to act, but he kept on saying, well, you've got to be talented to do that. And it kind of slightly like, oh, ouch.
It kind of reminds me of the bit out of Rocket Man, right, at the beginning.
Yeah.
Very similar.
And so, that was quite slightly difficult. Therefore, but once I came out of it, I still wanted to act. I thought I've done some acting. But I'm a better director than I'm an actor. And I'm a better writer than I'm a director. So I kind of know the limitations.
So you sort of found your place over a fair amount of time, is that fair to say? Yeah.
Oh, yes. I didn't start off with a burning ambition to be anything, really. I didn't start off at the age of 7, I'm going to be running the National Theatre, or I'm going to be... No, I think I'm too curious a human being.
Yeah.
If on the way home tonight I suddenly see some kind of extraordinary story, I'll try and follow it. Yeah. I won't kind of say, no, I'm doing something else at the moment. I'm just curious.
Interesting.
So that's how I...
It's in your nature.
It's it's ludicrous. It's quite a daft thing to do, to go away and do a huge musical. I'd never done a musical in my life.
But you enjoyed it, surely?
I had a ball. Watching the money go out was fascinating. But it's not sensible.
Yeah.
There's no logic behind that. It's just, I want to do a musical.
Once you started writing for TV, how long were you writing for TV for?
Must be 15, 20, near on 20 years, I suppose. And you do a lot of kind of, what should we say, staple food television, because you do a lot of kind of... I've never done anything shorter than 50 minutes. I'm quite rare.
Oh, right.
Because there is a supposed kind of high career path where you start off doing the shorter things and you end up doing longer things. But I started off because, and this maybe goes to part of what you were saying, is I knew somebody who was working within Casualty who happened to like the way I wrote.
Oh, right. How did you know them?
I knew them, how did I know them? I knew her father a bit, who was a famous designer.
Oh, right.
He was a designer. He designed for David Lean, he designed things like Dr. Zhivago and Lawrence of Arabia.
Right.
And I don't think that helped particularly, but it meant I knew her, and she then would read what I'd written.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of why. It meant that script got read.
Mm-hmm. Which helps.
Yeah. And because so many scripts really don't get read.
Yeah.
You know, they get seriously read.
Things first page sort of thing, and then
things
thrown
get
away.
seriously read if you know the person who you have to kind of, as it were, report back to.
Okay.
And that's no different from anybody. We all kind of, I get endless scripts to read, so I can't say that I read them all with the same thoroughness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, very quickly, within a few pages, you can tell whether somebody really has a gift.
Mm-hmm.
What do you look for then, so when you're reading scripts?
As advice to budding scriptwriters.
Well, I'm looking for, one, the ability to lay it out properly, two, the ability to be clear, simple, and actually write a screenplay rather than a novel.
Right.
And some kind of intelligence and spark and honesty within the writing. Okay. And an ability to see rather than just to hear.
Yeah.
Because what you're looking for in a script is not a scene heading and a bunch of dialogue. You're looking for the kind of moment-to-moment, the way that a story evolves visually.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for.
So how many films or TV shows would you say you've written that haven't been...
They haven't been made?
Yeah.
Oh, quite a lot, I don't know. Television shows particularly, not many, because television tends to commission you to write.
Right.
There were a couple of series which I kind of wrote 3 episodes of which didn't get made. One of which was called Turning French, which I suppose still has some kind of validity given we have Brexit now. So I had a family who were given a whole bunch of redundancy money and decided to throw it all on buying somewhere in France. And they had no French, they had no knowledge of anything French. And they bought this place in the summer when it was beautiful, and they ended up going down there when it was winter and cold.
Yeah.
And it's about how they kind of survived amongst a French community. We nearly got it made.
What stopped it?
What stopped it? Okay, what I think stopped it, it's very difficult to know.
Politics.
Oh, right.
What I think stopped it was because another series called A Year in Provence was bought by the BBC at the same time, and that was their kind of one English person in France story. And it was about a very rich English person dealing with local kind of tradesmen in France, which for me wasn't what it was about. I had a very ordinary family, but anyway, they made that.
Oh, so that show was...
So the space was taken.
Well, and the cynic in me and the kind of the grumpy person in me says, well, actually, that started off with, it had John Ford, who was quite famous at the time, and Lindsay Duncan as the stars. The first episode got 11 million people, the second one got 6, the third one got 2. So clearly the public didn't like it. But by that time, the moment has gone, really. Well, I mean, television writing stopped primarily. I didn't stop it. I stopped it because I was writing the same kind of scene in an episode of All Creatures Great and Small as I was in London's Burning or something. I thought, these two things, I can't do this anymore because I'm now repeating myself. I need to do something different. So I actually fundamentally threw almost all the money I'd made in television into one large theatre musical.
Ooh.
With a huge band and a huge cast, and
Where was that?
threw it on in Brixton, and it lost a lot of money.
Oh no! What was
But
it
it was
about?
it was about a futuristic society. It's a bit dystopian, in which the one thing that's been lost to the world has been any kind of fresh vegetables, because everything's in pills and powders, and as it almost is now. And there was the rebels became the people who were trying to infiltrate fresh produce into the city. So it had a kind of message behind it. But it was too big a cast, and it was called Centralia, and it was too big a cast. And it had a central love story between an ex-gangster and the queen of the the society. I mean, it was kind of too ambitious and too lunatic, really. It was a bit loony, but there's some lovely music, and, you know, we'll get it away someday. You know, these things don't ever die. Once you've done them, they
can be revisited.
They can be revisited.
Yeah.
That won't date. I mean, that won't date, you know. But that's where it all went.
Yeah.
So but, I mean, you know, teaching for me is a joy. I actually love teaching.
Yeah.
It's not I don't sort of think of it as teaching. I think it's a kind of, you know, you're sharing what I've learned.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopefully some of it goes in, some of it doesn't. It isn't a kind of, you must learn this. I don't think any kind of creativity is about, it's about releasing what you've already got. I think at the age of 1, you're the most ultimately creative people on the planet. And, you know, all you can do is, I think, in any kind of teaching situation is release what you've already got.
Yeah.
There are techniques we can teach you, because I've had to learn those, but that's about it. I can't actually make you something you're not.
How do you think theatre relates to, like, TV then? Does it relate all?
Well, they do, of course they do. I mean, theatre is theatre is a permanent wide shot. So if you're talking about the way we work here, because you whatever the cameras are doing right now, I don't know. Sometimes they're coming in, sometimes they're going out, sometimes they're taking 2 of us, sometimes 3 of us, sometimes 1 of us. With theatre, you've got 1 shot.
Yeah.
You've got a permanent wide shot usually of a rectangular box. The skill, therefore, for writing it or directing it or actually acting in it is knowing how to draw focus for the audience, because the audience have to be guided to watch whatever it is they're supposed to watch. With a film, with a piece of television, you choose. We the creators, choose which bit of it to look at. The joy of writing theatre is actually having a live audience.
Yeah.
The delight is to be able to hear the laughter,
The reaction.
to see the cry. The great, I find difficult as a writer with any kind of screen thing is I don't know how people respond.
Yeah, you don't know the reactions.
I miss sitting in a theatre with one of my plays on and hearing someone laugh. I miss it. I'd spent a considerable amount of time being paid to write a thing called Heart, which was all about somebody suing for a broken heart.
Oh, really?
So because you can sue anybody for breaking. If you break your leg in a municipal area, you can sue for that. So I wanted someone to sue for a broken heart because they want to take his girlfriend to court for breaking his heart.
Right.
And so it's still around. It still does the rounds. It's not dead yet because the story isn't dead. The notion of going into court and suing someone for a broken heart is quite nice. Prove your heart is broken and all that kind of stuff. So it's around. I spent a long time doing it. Plus other things. I worked on another thing which is again still I suppose alive, which is a television series about fairies.
Right.
There are only 4 fairies left in the universe, and they put in a capsule and they floated through to try and find true love. And by some disastrous accident, they end up in Hollywood, where nothing is true and nothing is real. So here they are, thinking all these people are behaving this crazy way with kind of plastic surgery and everything, and that's real. So that these 4 fairies have to find a way of assimilating with all these people and becoming real. It's quite complicated. But is that going on? There's another one set in New York. And you always, I'm afraid, writers have endless things on the go. You have to, because most of them won't get made. So all of them have some kind of money in. They all have little bits of money in to keep you kind of ticking over. Like I'm doing one for South Africa about Eleanor of Aquitaine.
Oh, really?
South African money making something about a French queen from the 12th century, probably with an English cast. It's being cast by English people. What?
Is that normal, or is
That's kind of as crazy as ever.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way of knowing where a budget comes from. It comes from all sorts of places. You have no idea. We have the New York thing has money from Czechoslovakia because the Czechs want to have the location rights. They want to be able to film it. Some of the scenes there, because some of the scenes are set in Slovakia. But, you know, these are all a long way from necessarily being up on your screens. But they're all in development in some way or the other.
Yeah,
you know?
interesting.
And
so out of your whole career then, would you say it was more about who you met or what you knew, like script-wise, that got you like...
I would argue that it's about... Okay, if you write... What happens, it's always useful to have some catalyst, some person who or who gives you, opens a door a tiny bit, opens a window a tiny bit, gives you a key. But once you're in there, I'm afraid it's a meritocracy.
Yeah.
You know, the reason I spent probably 3 years learning how to write scripts, but the way I learned how to write scripts was to watch old scripts and work out how they were written. I literally used to write down and then go back and check the script to see how close I got to it.
Oh, interesting.
I spent about 3 years doing this, trying to sell things. I'm selling things off all the time, and I got a couple of radio plays on, which helped me believe it was okay. Then I sold a couple of original TV plays, which were so that all was working. I mean, it took me 3 years to get anything solid on, and once I got one thing on, literally, all those people who turned me down for years before suddenly were on the phone. You know, saying, please. The same thing happens. Have you ever heard of a writer called Jimmy McGovern? Jimmy, who wrote things like Priest and all sorts of. He's quite old now, but he has a reputation. Did things like Cracker, but he had written for 15 years for Brookside, which was a soap, half-hour, daily soap in Liverpool, and he'd been turned down with 2 or 3 major films. He'd been turned down, literally. He got Cracker, got one episode of that, then his phone didn't stop ringing.
Really?
People need approval. So you do need a door to open.
Yeah.
But once you get in there, you've got to write something or create something which is...
You have to prove yourself.
Yeah, you do. And you have to make sure other people do. You will have people who don't like you as well. You know, I don't know of a single writer or critic hasn't been, what should we say, blacklisted by somebody.
Yeah.
But that's life.
Yeah.
That's life. There's not a logical process to it. But you have to, if you get an opportunity, you have to kind of be as brilliant as you possibly can.
Definitely. Okay, well, thank you so much
Pleasure.
for being on the show. Watch next week to find out who we interview, whether it was who they knew or what they knew for their career. Thank you.